Hey guys, I've been asked to do some updates and it's been a long time, so I just kind of wanted to touch base on the Superdwarfs and the dwarf projects that are coming along. Some of these guys are hitting 3 years old this year, some of them just hit 2, some of them about 2.5, and then a couple of them are just hitting 1. And so I wanted to kind of show you the progress of a 1-year-old Superdwarf 50% retic. This is the Superdwarf Super Tiger 66% het white albino, and she was produced over by Travis Cube's facility. She's roughly 4 feet, maybe a little bit under, a little bit over. It's kind of hard to guesstimate her size, but she's definitely not on the small side anymore, and definitely a lot bigger than you would see for a pure Superdwarf, but still crazy not compared to what you would see in a mainland that's 1 year old. So again, this is just a little bit of an update for a comparison of a 1-year-old Super Tiger Super Dwarf 50% F2 cross for this particular one that was produced. Changing gears yet again, now we're looking at a 2-year-old sibling to that first Super Tiger that we saw, and this is a 50% SD Tiger 66% het white albino. She's not going to be happy right now. This girl is roughly in the neighborhood of about 8.5 feet, maybe pushing about 9 feet at this point. But she is, again, from that same generation cross that Travis Cubes performed 2 years ago. It's just 1 year older than that Super Tiger that we looked at. And this particular snake, I mean, again, amazing temperament on these guys. It's nothing like the days whenever you heard about retics being extremely aggressive and highly dangerous to be keeping, and people were just giving them bad press and bad media all the time. They've been bred in captivity for so long now that they are just incredibly docile. And yeah, so this is the growth you're looking at after about 2 years. And you can see she's put on quite a bit, and she was about the same size as that Super Dwarf Super Tiger we looked at the 1 year mark as well. So in another year, we'll be seeing the Super Tiger at this size, maybe a little bit better because the Super Tiger is getting fed a little bit harder. Okay, and in the next comparison, this is a male. It's at least 50% Jampia. Again, this is a golden child. This is a het lavender, which just means that we don't know whether it's going to be het white or het purple for Clark strain albino. But this guy just turned 1 year old, and just to show you, I mean, the real big contrast. This guy's about 6 feet, and he's putting on some weight finally, which means he may be starting to top off, and he's getting ready to breed. But this guy here is from a Jampia pure female crossed with a golden child albino, and that was a lavender albino on that one. But after 1 year of pretty consistent growth, this guy has been eating, for the first 6 months he was fed about every 4 days. From then on he's fed once a week, and right now he's currently being fed at least 1 large rat, and then occasionally he'll get 2 large rats, and then occasionally he'll just get a medium rat, and so we've kind of been switching it up a little bit. But I mean, beautiful, beautiful snake. You can try to get it to focus in on him. But yeah, this is the golden child het lavender albino, Clark strain of course, and this is a at least 50% Jampia, and then of course whatever dwarf blood is in it from the golden child gene itself. Again, don't expect this guy to get really, really massive, but he is absolutely. Okay guys, now we're going to look at a full-grown retic. This is a male tiger, and this is a 50% Super Dwarf. And people think, you know, they're not going to get real big, but this is actually bigger than a lot of male retics that are mainland that I've seen. And it's not really because he's been just pushed so hard on food, and he's about 11.5 feet. It's nice and fat too. You can see he's got a really good girth to him. It's just, this is a real old snake. This was one of the first crosses that was done. This particular one came from Brandon Bokey over at Priceless Pythons. He was holding this clutch back because this was the first 50% tigers that were produced that he knows of. I know that there are some people out there who's done some previous ones now at this point, but this was one of the first ones that was done. And to be honest, he wasn't fed too much at Brandon's facility. When I got him, he was around 2 or 3 years old. I've had him for 3 years now, and it's kind of weird. He came in, he was just under 6 feet. He was tiny. He was exactly what I was looking for as far as Super Dwarf retics goes. He actually fit in one of these CB70s just fine. He was very content there, and he grew up there for about 3 months. After that, he outgrew it, and the reason for that is I did increase his food intake. I was starting to feed him on jumbo rats. He quickly moved to XXL rats. He quickly moved to guinea pigs. And then all of a sudden he got to get rabbit. And he loved rabbit. And so he was getting 1 rabbit every 2 weeks. And for a male, you can really maintenance feed. You don't have to give them weekly feedings. They don't have to be these massive meals. That's for your females who are putting a lot of that energy towards breeding. These guys during the breeding season might put out a lot of energy. But again, it's not nearly as much as people expect. Okay, so this is another adult. This time we're looking at a male pure Superdwarf. This guy has no other external influences from the mainlands. This is a Calatoia, 100% Superdwarf, and he's anery to boot. Right now he's not too fired up, so you're not going to see his pretty colors when he gets really, well, it's pretty lack of colors and silvers and greens and everything else that show. But this guy, as you can see, he's not real big. He's about 6 feet in length, and I mean, that thickness right there, you're talking a comfortably thin ball python male. Maybe a little bit obese corn snake. That's what we're talking about with the girth here. But as far as their docility, again, really docile snake. They're handleable. You can take them out with you. You can show them to kids. But the thing to know about pure Superdwarfs is they are a little bit flighty. This guy, he's very sporadic and quick. He'll take off without me noting if I'm not watching him. And that's just kind of like a colubrid. Corn snakes can do that. King snakes do that a lot. And milk snakes, when they're young, do that. When they get adult, they kind of calm down a little bit. But it is a very intelligent snake. They can't escape real easy, so you need to have those locks secure. You need to have the caging, heavy glass, something that can keep them from getting out. You know, you don't want to keep these guys in glass tanks. You want to either use a good rack system to start raising them with. Once they get of size, you want to move them into something like these nice Visions. These are Vision 600, Vision 400. Then I've got some Neodesha Plastics 36-inch stackables on the opposite wall, and then of course PVC cage by PVCcage.com. Jim Stevenson cages, not Jim Stevenson's. Oh yeah, I think it is Jim Stevenson's. His cages are over here on the left. But nonetheless, yeah, I got a message. But nonetheless, this guy is really cool, and for those who are real interested in the Retic as just a collection, if you're not too terribly interested in breeding, if you're just wanting to be able to own a Retic, I highly suggest that you get a Superdwarf male. These guys are absolutely a door to work with. They're very, very fun animals, and it's something different to your everyday animals you keep. It's a lot livelier than a ball python. It's a lot more intelligent than a boa constrictor that just kind of sits there. Now, while a boa is a great, heavy-bodied snake, and they make beautiful pets just because their docility is incredible, the Superdwarfs give you a little bit of a challenge because you kind of got to keep on your toes, you kind of got to know what they're doing, and at the same time, that feeding ferocity just makes them so easy to house because you don't have to worry about problem feeders. I mean, there are some, especially the Superdwarfs, that don't start out too well, but once they get slamming on food, it is consistency. Beautiful thing. So again, this is the Travis Cubes produced Superdwarf Anery Retic.